Okay, so now that you've edited the photos and you see how easy it is to edit photos, it's time to share them. So I'm going to teach you the process of doing that, and it's called export. The photos that you're seeing on screen are what's called a proxy. They're a temporary representation of what could be. So what you're seeing on screen is this recipe of the develop module added to that original photo, but the only place what you're seeing exists is in Lightroom. So the only way someone can come and see this is if they come over your shoulder and look at what you're doing and see what you're doing. So let's get them outside of Lightroom so that they're easier to share. So the process again for that is called export. And the way we do that is to click on the library module. So we're going to switch from develop, where we do the edits, to library, where we do organizing. And once we're in the library module, so once you see your photos in the library module, the next step is to select all those photos, because we want to export all these photos so that we can share them on, in our case, Flickr. So here's how you do that. We need to select all of them. There's a bunch of ways to do it. I like to use the keyboard shortcut, which is on a Mac, the Command key and the letter A. On a PC, it would be Control and then the letter A. Or if you don't like that, go to the Edit menu and select all there. Okay, so they're all selected. They have a light gray or a white box around them. Down here in your film strip, it says there's 3 photos selected. All right, so that's part 1 of the export process. Part 2 is to click on the export button just on the lower left corner of the Lightroom Classic window. All right, so once you've clicked on export, it brings you to this window with, similar to import, there's some very specific ways in the map, the Michael Approve process, that you need to follow. The nice thing is export is really easy. We're going to do some setup in this demonstration, and then after that, there's only one thing you need to remember to do each time you export. So let's do the setup, let's get started, and I'll point out the place where you really need to pay attention in this setup part. So here we go. We're going to start at the top where it says Export To. So please click there where it says Desktop is the current location, and we're going to change that when we click there to the menu, change it to the option that's at the top, which is Specific Folder. So click on that, and now what you've got is on the right-hand side, there's this button that says Choose, which lets you tell Lightroom, put the photos here. So we're going to click on that. Click on the Choose button, and it will take you to your computer window, and I'm going to suggest you start on your desktop or wherever you located your imports folder. And wherever that location is, what you're going to now create is a folder that will hold folders of exported projects. Okay, so let's start on your location. Mine's on my desktop with a new folder, and I'm going to call this Exports. Okay, Exports. Once you've got that, you can click on the Create button. And then inside of that, what I want is a subfolder for each project I'm working on. So I'll start with this project because it's the only one we've got so far. I'm going to make a new folder inside of that. And this will be called, I usually, again, use the same name as I did when I was importing. This is Lightroom Classic 1. It's the first demonstration of Lightroom Classic. So I'm on my desktop, and then at Exports, and then the next level down is Lightroom Classic. So again, at the end of the quarter, you'll have a separate folder for each project you've worked on in Lightroom, and there'll be like 6 or 8 of those here. So click Choose. And that gives the instructions to Lightroom. When I'm done creating this new version of the photo, send it over here. And that's the only thing you'll have to do each time after this one. So once you've gotten the location chosen, a little more setup. The rest of it will be set up, and you don't have to do this anymore after this one setup time. So uncheck Put in Subfolder. Turn that off. Otherwise, you'll have an untitled folder inside your chosen export folder. So turn that off. We don't need file naming, so I'm going to close that by clicking on the gray bar. I don't need video. I'm going to click on that and close that up. File settings, I do want that. We're going to go ahead and stick with the JPEG option. That's a good option for sharing photos. The color space, we're going to leave at sRGB. Just trust me, that's the color of the internet. That's a good thing. I do want to change one thing, which is the quality slider. So I'm going to change the quality from its default, which is 60. I'm going to click on it to type a new number, and that new number is 90. 90. I know, why not go all the way to 100? Here's why. The short version is the quality difference that you can see between 90 and 100 is minimal at best. You probably can't see a difference. But the file size, the amount of space it takes up on your computer, and when you upload it, is quite a bit smaller. So it's a good trade-off, a good compromise. That's why I go with 90. Okay. The next panel down, image sizing. So we have these large photos. Even phone photos are big. They have a lot of pixels, a lot of dots in them. So we don't need all of those for what we're going to do online here with these images. So I'm going to shrink them again to be kind to the internet. So where it says Resize to Fit, go ahead and click that to activate that option. We're going to shrink the photos. Leave the width and height alone, that's okay. Go ahead and turn on the option to don't enlarge. So we don't want to make these photos, let's say you cropped it from this to this little tiny thing. We don't want to stretch it back up because that'll be a loss in image quality. So the W and the H, that stands for width and height. They're currently at 1,000 pixels. We'll talk about pixels in another class. So I want to highlight that and change it from 1,000 to 2,000. I'm going to do that for both the W and the H. What this means is whatever the longest side is, so if it's a portrait, a landscape orientation, that means the width will be the wider element. And if it's vertical portrait, that'll be the height. So it'll set that value at 2,000, and then whatever the shorter size is will proportionally scale to match. It's not going to result in a square image. We're going to leave the resolution at 240. We'll have a class about that later in the quarter. So this is important. This is part of the technical grade of your photos. You do want to set these at 2,000. If these values, if the long side of your image is different than 2,000, it's a 10-point deduction on your grade. So on the technical part. So make sure you get it correct and do it right here. If you have any questions, pause the video, rewind, and see what happened. Or send me an email or see me in Zoom office hours. Output sharpening we're not going to use, so I close that. Metadata. One thing in metadata, make sure that this is turned on. We do need all the metadata, which is the exposure information and the date it's taken. Those are the two things I also need to see in your images. Any photos missing metadata, either when you imported them to Lightroom or if you forgot to do this part here, again, those are 0. They're not going to be graded at all. So make sure you got the metadata. If you're not sure what that means, let me know. And watermarking we're not going to use, so I turned that off. Post-processing, not going to use that here. Turn that off. So basically, these two settings will stick with you every time you come back to Lightroom. Each time you come back to Lightroom to export photos, the only thing you need to do is choose a location. And that will be in your exports folder. Click new folder inside of that to make a folder for each project. So we're all ready. Now what we got to do is click on the export blue button down in the bottom right corner to complete the process. Click it once and you'll see a progress bar in Lightroom in the top left corner. And these photos are kind of large raw files. They take a lot of space, so it's doing some math. It takes a minute. If you're working on phone photos or smaller JPEG type images, they will not take as much time. It's done. So now these photos that once only lived on this computer, in Lightroom I should say, now are a separate file on your computer. And what I'll show you next in the next video is the process that I use in this class for uploading these photos to Flickr.